This video is sponsored by Card Kingdom. You can visit their store by using my referral link in the description below. Hi everyone, I'm Nizzahon, and it's Friday, and that means it's time for another MTG Top 10, the series where I rank cards based on their historical performance at Magic's highest level of competition. One of my goals with this series is to eventually look at every creature's stat line, and today we're looking at another one. This video takes a look at one of the most efficient stat lines there is, 5 mana 6/6s. A 6/6 for 5 has been a nice deal throughout the history of Magic, and as a result, a lot of creatures with that stat line have seen play. There are only 26 of them in the long history of Magic, but more than half of them have at least one top 8 at a major event. In this video, we'll take a look at the 10 of them that have left the biggest impact on competitive Magic. Before we get started, here's a quick reminder on how I score cards in these videos. A first tier top 8 is worth 2 points, this includes events like Pro Tours and Set Championships, and a second tier top 8 is worth 1 point, and this includes events like Grand Prix and Magic Fests. At number 10, it is Auspicious STARRIX. This 5 mana 6/6 comes with some pretty amazing upside. When it mutates, you get to exile a card from the top of your library for each time it has mutated until you hit a permanent, and when you do, you get to put that permanent directly on the battlefield. It of course comes with mutate itself, so if you want to, you can pay 6 to mutate this onto something and get a free permanent. Mutate is a bit of a risk usually, since you're stacking 2 creatures on top of each other, opening you up to a potential 2 for 1, but getting a free permanent really softens that blow. It gained all of its points in the standard of 2020 in the first half of the year in Umori the Collector aggro decks. This was before Companion got nerfed, so running a Companion was absurdly powerful. It basically meant you had an extra card in your hand every game, and that card was one of the best ones in your deck. Mutate was pretty good in these Umori decks since they gave you spell-like effects in a deck that was all creatures. In those decks, it wasn't hard to get more than 1 free permanent out of mutating with the STARRIX. After Companions got nerfed though, STARRIX never gained any more points. At number 9, it is Illarg, the Razeboar, another 5 mana 6/6 with a ton of upside. In this case, it comes with Trample and the ability to put a creature from your hand onto the table attacking when it attacks. Because he is a god from War of the Spark, he also refuses to stay dead. You put him back into your library 3 from the top when it dies. Illarg has gained all of its points in Modern Reanimator decks. In Modern, these types of decks run ways to reanimate super powerful creatures like Emrakul with Goryo's Vengeance, and they also frequently use Through the Breach to cheat such creatures into play. Illarg is nice there because it does the same sort of thing as Through the Breach, but it's also a creature that you can reanimate. Reanimating an Illarg and putting Emrakul into play with it when it attacks is pretty insane. Illarg doesn't have any points since 2020, but with a card this powerful, it's hard to count it out entirely. At number 8, it is Hunted Dragon. This is a 5 mana 6/6 with both flying and haste, so it can represent an incredibly quick clock. There is a pretty hefty downside though. You also give your opponent 3 2/2 Night tokens with First Strike. Those tokens can't block the dragon though, so it doesn't matter as much as you would think. Hunted Dragon ended up with a Pro Tour top 8 in both Ravnica Block Constructed and Standard. The block deck was a pretty typical Boros aggro deck, but the standard deck was one of the sweetest top 8 decks we've ever seen, Dragonstorm. The deck was built around casting various ritual type effects to generate enough mana to cast Dragonstorm, and that will have also raised your storm count high enough that you could search up enough dragons to win. While not all versions of the deck ran Hunted Dragons, some of them did. Obviously, getting 3 Hunted Dragons with it is often going to be enough to end the game immediately, so those 3 Night tokens really don't matter. Hunted Dragon hasn't gained any points since 2006. At number 7, it is Org. Hunted Dragon notwithstanding, this list is mostly made up of 5 mana 6/6s with upside, but Org is the original 5 mana 6/6, and in the early days of Magic, creatures were significantly weaker, so he actually comes with significant downside. The text box isn't all downside though, he comes with Trample. The downside here is that the Org can't attack if the opponent has an unblocked creature with power 3 or greater, and it also can't block creatures with power 3 or greater. That seems like some significant downside today, but in his time he was one of the best creatures in the game, and he showed up as the top curve in early aggro decks like Sly and Zoo. He doesn't have any points since 1996, and future 5 mana 6/6s are definitely going to jeopardize its spot on this list, as it just doesn't keep up with the creature power creep we've seen, but hey, at least Org is an important card from early Magic history. At number 6, it is Doom Whisperer, a 5 mana 6/6 with flying and trample, and the ability to pay 2 life to surveil 2. So basically, it's a huge creature that can kill your opponent in the air quickly, and it comes with an ability that can rapidly load the graveyard, or help a player manipulate the top of their library in an ideal way, and that ability doesn't cost any mana. So even if it does get killed right away, its controller is likely to still gain some serious value. The Whisperer was played in some versions of Standard Golgari midrange back in 2018, and since the historic format was created, it has enjoyed some significant success there too, gaining points in 4-color and Sultai control decks. It has the potential to gain more points in historic going forward. At number 5, it's Spiritmonger. Earlier, we saw Org, the first 5 mana 6/6 ever. Now we're looking at Spiritmonger, the first 5 mana 6/6 with upside. Org is kind of the grandfather of all the cards on this list, and Spiritmonger is kind of their father. Spiritmonger has an interesting backstory, since it was designed as part of a You Make the Creature contest, and it ended up winning. The goal of the contest was to make the most bizarre and powerful creature possible. Basically, it was intentionally designed as an incredibly powerful creature by a couple of Magic players, and the end result was what many thought was one of the game's most powerful creatures ever when it came out. Spiritmonger gets a +1/+1 counter when it does damage to a creature, it can regenerate, and it can change color. Okay, that last one isn't the most impressive upside ever, but you are still getting a pretty good deal for your investment here, especially back in 2001. It gained a few points in Standard, but it is more famous for its time in Extended, where it played a large role in spawning the historically significant The Rock deck, which was essentially a black-green mid-range deck that ran lots of ways to generate card advantage, and Spiritmonger was the deck's main win condition. The Rock decks have shown up a whole lot since then, though Spiritmonger hasn't been played in any version of the deck since 2002. At number 4, it is SURRAK Dragonclaw. In the lore, this 5 mana 6/6 is the head of the Temur on Tarkir. He brings a bunch of effects to the table. In addition to just having great stats as a 5 mana 6/6, SURRAK also gives your whole board trample, he's also got flash, and he can't be countered, and he makes it so your other creature spells can't be countered either. Flash is great on a creature this big since it's pretty easy to ambush block opposing creatures, since almost all of them will be smaller than SURRAK. SURRAK was played in Temur aggro decks while he was in Standard. More recently, he's been played in Pioneer, where it showed up in 4 and 5 color control decks with great mana, like Omnath Ramp and Niv-MIzzet Reborn. These are both decks really reliant on one powerful creature giving you insane value, and SURRAK can allow you to make sure you can cast powerful creatures without them getting countered, in addition to just being a big beater in the first place. Omnath did eventually end up getting banned, of course, but Niv-MIzzet decks are still legit in Pioneer, and it's likely to gain more points in that deck going forward. It also sees some fringe play in modern Primeval Titan decks, but hasn't gained any points there so far. It has a decent shot at gaining more points and moving up this list in the future. At number 3, it is Niv-MIzzet Reborn, a card I just mentioned when talking about SURRAK Dragonclaw. When Niv enters the battlefield, you get to look at the top 10 cards of your library, and for all 10 color pairs, you can select a card and put it directly into your hand. So basically, Niv is a massive flyer that can end the game quickly on his own, and in the decks he is played in, you tend to also draw 4+ cards when you cast him, basically making it impossible for you to lose. Niv-MIzzet didn't gain any points in Standard, where it was pretty difficult to both construct a good mana base and find enough good cards in each color pair to really abuse him. However, in Pioneer and Modern, there is much better mana and a larger pool of 2-colored cards to draw from, and Niv-MIzzet Reborn decks have found significant success in both formats. Niv decks have slowed down some in Modern, but they're still a real factor in Pioneer, so he's likely to continue to gain points there. At number 2, it is ARBOR Colossus. This 5 mana 6/6 really hates flyers. He not only brings an impressive 5 mana 6/6 reach body to the table, he also has a powerful monstrosity ability that makes it larger, and he also destroys a flyer on the spot. He saw both main deck and sideboard play while in Standard, where he was pretty well positioned as a result of there being some powerful, heavily played flyers in the format, like Stormbreath Dragon. The Colossus was mostly played in Green Devotion decks, where it could be quickly ramped into, and it was also nice that it added so much to your Green Devotion. The Colossus rotated out of Standard in 2015 and hasn't gained a single point since then. In the not-too-distant future, ARBOR Colossus will get passed by the more active cards behind it, like Niv-MIzzet and SURRAK Dragonclaw. So there's going to be a shakeup at the top of this list in the future, but it's pretty unlikely the number 1 card on this list gets unseated anytime soon, and that card is Elder Gargaroth, which is extra impressive because it's also the newest card on the list. By the time we got to number 2 on this list, most of you probably guessed this would be at number 1 if you didn't already guess that would be the case from the beginning. Anyway, this is a 5-mana 6/6 with Vigilance, Reach, and Trample, and anytime it attacks or blocks, you get a choice between 3 powerful options. You can draw a card, you can make a beast token, or you can gain 3 life. Combining Vigilance and Reach with that modal ability is great too, because it means that the Gargaroth can attack and block during most turn cycles, which also means you're going to get 2 triggers. If the Gargaroth isn't removed straight up, it's going to give its controller at least 1 trigger, and that's a pretty nice 2-for-1. If he gets more than a single trigger, he completely takes over the game. Obviously, the Gargaroth has already enjoyed significant multi-format success, gaining points in Standard, Historic, Pioneer, and Modern. In Standard, it's been played as a sideboard card that mid-range and control decks can bring in against aggro, and it sees main deck play in Yorion Ultimatum decks. In Pioneer, it's played in Devotion to Green, and in Modern, it's played in Utopia Gruul, a red-green Ponza deck. It likely will continue to gain points in all of those formats, further solidifying its position as the best 5-mana 6/6 in Magic. Well, those are the 10 5-mana 6/6s that have left the biggest impact on competitive Magic. If you want to own any of these powerful creatures, you can find direct Card Kingdom links for each of them in the description. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and share it so that others can enjoy it too. And if you aren't subscribed, you should be, so that you can stay aware of future content. If you want to catch up on past content, including over 450 other MTG top 10s, many of which look at creatures' stat lines like this one, you should see the playlist on your screen shortly. Lastly, if you want to go the extra mile in supporting the channel, you can on Patreon. Thanks for watching.